this is something that, I tell you, this is going to be practical, because this is real. This is what, rubber meets the road kind of thing. Your tomorrow depends on today. Now, this message came from a combination of two things. One is that I have a blog, but I'm doing a series on the book of Proverbs and trying to look at the book of Proverbs in a different way than you normally look at it. And that's true, because in the book of Proverbs, most of the time when you hear people talk about the book of Proverbs, they only focus on the last 10 verses in chapter 31. You ever notice that? That's the one that says, a virtuous wife gets up early in the morning and she knits all the clothes for her family. And for some reason, that's all anybody ever teaches on. But the remainder of the book, this is called wisdom literature. It's teaching us things about life. And I bring this up several times in here, that it's a father speaking to his son, like a teenage son saying, don't do what I did. Learn from our mistakes. That's one. It came from there. But also a friend of mine posed a question on Facebook, and I had to really think about it. And that is, what advice would you give to your younger self? Now, he posted this because he's turning 30, and I'm looking at it, and I turned 60. I'm like, I could say a lot of stuff. But the more that I thought, I actually came up with 3 or 4 ideas, actual ideas, what I would tell my younger self, and grab him by the shoulders and shake him a few times. What were you thinking? But the more I thought about this question, the more I realized that all my answers could be summed up in one statement. What you do today determines how you will be doing tomorrow. I notice I said how you will be doing tomorrow, not what you'll be doing tomorrow. And that's really an important distinction. Your what will change. Okay, I'd say I'm 60 years old. I've had at least 3 careers in my adult life. And so that always changes. You better not be doing what you're doing at 18, better not be what you're doing at 28, because you should have been rising up the corporate ladder. You should have been learning more things about yourself and moving into other things that meet your particular interests and skills and talent. So the what isn't the problem. It's the how you're going to be doing it. See, the how of our lives talks about our mental state. It talks about our physical condition, whether we're healthy or not. It talks about our financial conditions. It talks about how successful and happy we'll be in life, or how miserable of a future we will have. Let's look at Proverbs here, and if you want to follow along, well, it's going to basically all be the first chapter of Proverbs. Let's look at wisdom real quick. I love this illustration because of the way that it's talked about. The writer of Proverbs describes wisdom as a person, as a woman. I think that's clever. So wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief places of concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and the fools hate knowledge. Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words unto you. Wisdom has the toughest job on the planet. She has to convince people, us, to listen to her and to not do what we're doing. I was going to have a picture. I was looking for one where, in the movie Metropolis, there's a scene where there's a woman who's like an evangelist, and she's standing on this box, her and a couple other people, and they're pleading with everybody in the crowd that's walking by, don't do this, don't do this, and they just keep walking. And that's the way it is sometimes with wisdom. It seems like it's there. Not everybody gets it. So where does wisdom come from? Now here's something that's might be new to you. This was new to me when I finally figured this out. According to the Bible, Wisdom comes from outside of us. It is something that we have to learn and we have to work for. And that concept is all throughout the book of Proverbs. Now, it's important to understand that because that's pretty much opposite of what we're taught in the media, TV, movies, ever since the 60s. I know this because I survived it. Whenever somebody needs some wisdom, what do? Go meditate on it. You have the knowledge inside. Well, the Bible says that knowledge, wisdom, is not from within. That idea was totally foreign to the biblical writers. You know, the idea that if you meditate long enough, then suddenly you get this flash of inspiration, that's not from the Bible. Meditation in the Bible, when they use that word meditate, is different than the way they use the word meditate in, say, Hinduism or Buddhism. It's totally different. Meditate in the Bible is an active thing that when you're studying, you're learning, you're working on something, and you're trying to discover. In Eastern religions, meditation is, and actually Pastor Keith kind of touched on this last week when he talked about transcendental meditation. It's when you relax yourself, you empty yourself of yourself, you have nothing, and the cosmic, it gets really crazy really quick. But you'll get something from within that gives you some kind of wisdom. The Old Testament writers, they didn't buy that. They said, no, this is something you got to learn. And there's a reason for that, and that's because of what the Bible says about us. The Bible teaches that what's inside us is not good. Remember, we have a fallen nature, and that's the key to a lot of this. We have a fallen nature, so what's inside us is not necessarily good. Human beings don't have a light within. That's why we need a Savior. We don't have a light within. Now, Jesus actually taught that. Matthew 15, verses 18 and 19, he says, "But those things that proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceeds evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, and blasphemies." The heart, in Hebrew literature, is the seat of your emotion. It's not this thing that pumps blood. They didn't have that idea yet. It's the seat of your emotions, the seat of your intellect. It's you. It's what makes you you. And they're saying, no, we don't cut it. They understood people for what they are. Jeremiah said the same thing. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? We've had some things happen lately in the news, school shooting and some other things. And people look out and they say, how could this happen? There's your answer. Evil is in the heart of man. And don't blame God for this stuff either, by the way. And that's the other one. They went, where was God when all this? Well, he's where he always is. He's on his throne. He gives us a certain amount of free will to do things if we choose to rebel against him. Now, people don't like that explanation because it changes the rules. How do we get wisdom? Let me give you some math. Getting wisdom is a mathematical equation. Here we go. This is where we get to the geek part. No, I'm kidding. But this is what you see all throughout the book of Proverbs. Knowledge plus experience and or understanding will give you wisdom. Does that make sense? Knowledge plus experience and or understanding will give you wisdom. Now, the reason I say and or is because you can learn from other people's mistakes. Probably the best example I can think of off the top of my head is I've never gotten a DUI, right? Driving under the influence. And that's not simply because I don't drink. It's because I used to be in the Army, and at my particular pay grade, my rank structure, if I got one DUI or one positive on a urinalysis test for drugs, I lost my entire pension. Done. Out. One shot. If that doesn't scare you, because they're waving over your head a carrot, which if you live long enough is a retirement worth $250,000. Okay? Roughly. When you add in all the medical benefits and all that kind of neat stuff. So The system has you. I had friends, I had colleagues who got DUIs and came up positive on your analysis test, and they were gone. I was like, man, did you hear about Bob? He's gone. No way. Now, I'm a musician. I used to go to concerts every weekend, like rock concerts and stuff. I never went to the whole time I was in the Army, I would not go to a concert. I would not drink and get in a car. I would, I stay away from that stuff because I want to retire someday. I want my pension. I don't want to lose it all because of something foolish. So I'm learning from their experiences. And you can do that. What I'm doing right now. I was not born this way. Okay. If you want to get up and talk in front of people, you'll learn some things about, you learn how to make outlines. You'll learn, through trial and error. You don't see all the times that it was really embarrassing for me to get up and talk. After, 30 years or so of doing this, I'll get up and talk to anybody and tell jokes, and I'm not afraid that people think I'm stupid or whatever. But that's something I've learned. Knowledge of what I'm supposed to be doing, plus my experience gives me wisdom so I can come in and do just what I'm doing right now. We're showing PowerPoints and stuff. I had to learn how to do that, all this stuff. That's how life works. Another thing that the Bible tells us is this, that ultimately we get wisdom from having a relationship with God. It's like, that's interesting. And that's true for a couple of reasons. One is, when you have a relationship with God, and when you're born again, you are suddenly seeing reality through His eyes, and you see it clearly. The best illustration I've ever seen about being born again is from the movie The Matrix, where they put out, he says, you take a blue pill, you take a red pill. One pill leaves you where you are. You'll be what you are. And you can forget about all this other stuff. You take the other pill, and we show you what's real. And in a lot of ways, Christianity is like that. It's just like what I'm saying in the book of Proverbs. The author is showing us what real life is. Robert Ringer's definition of reality. It's what it is. It's not what you hope it is. It's not what you think it is. It's what it really is. There's some philosophy 101 for it. It is what it is. And we don't often see that because we're told other things. The Bible says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and it's the beginning of wisdom. That relationship with God is what gives us this. And let's get back to how it affects your life as far as the future. This is also from Proverbs Chapter One. This is a father's warning. Remember I said that Proverbs is a father giving advice to his son. And he says this, my son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, come with us, let us lay wait for blood. Let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down to the pit. We shall find all precious substance, and we shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot amongst us. Let us all have one purse. My son, walk not thou in the way of them. Refrain thy foot from their path. For their feet run to evil, and make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird. And they lay wait for their own blood. They look privily for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof. Okay, to summarize that in more modern terms is, watch out for your friends. Because this is something right. This is real life too. You hang out with bad friends. It's like, hey man, let's go hang out behind the bar and we'll roll a drunk guy and steal all his money. And then we'll split it, like 10 ways. Don't go there. That's real. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you watch on TV. Somebody gets arrested for it. And I do have a real life example for that. This is a true story. Remember years ago, I took a tour of a county jail, and the sheriff was explaining how we had a young man in his jail who, other than one thing, did nothing wrong, but it changed and ruined his life forever. A bunch of these young men decided, one of his friends pulls up in the car and says, hey, let's go riding. So they all piled in the car, and they're riding around. Hey, this is Oklahoma. There's nothing else to do. You drive up and down the main street. I mean, I never understood that, but that's what they do. They drive up and down. Oh, they're Staples again, you know. And so they're all in the car. Well, what's unbeknownst to the other people in the car, one of those young men had a handgun. And as they were driving down the road, he pulls out the handgun, sticks it out the window, and starts shooting. Well, that's illegal. Everybody in the car, whether they knew this guy had a handgun or not, whether they pulled the trigger or not, is now an accessory to a crime. That young man went to jail just for sitting in the back of the car, minding his own business. And that's tragic, but that's real. Here's the author of Proverbs saying, don't do this. If you know they're going to do something crazy, don't go there. Look out for yourself. Because, remember, what you decide today determines how you will be tomorrow. You know, he's right in the back where there's a firearms incident. He gets a felony conviction. That affects his life forever. That'll prevent you from certain jobs. That'll prevent you from doing a lot of things because you have a felony. Did he set out to do that? Was he necessarily a bad guy? Maybe not. But the thing is that his decision to get in that car changed everything. Because, here's another maxim. If you make poor decisions now, you will pay for it later. You know, cause and effect. That's really what it is. That's really what it is. You know, nothing happens by itself. You know, things just don't materialize. For every cause, or for every effect, there's a cause. Somebody makes a decision, and maybe, like that young man, he didn't make that decision, but somebody else did that affected him because he made another decision to be there. A major magazine, I can't remember exactly which one it was, recently did a study, and they found there was 2 things for young people that if they do these 2 things, they will have a successful life. And I'm going to add a third. Those 2 things are finish high school and don't have babies before you finish high school. We think that's funny, but I mean, they found this to be true anywhere. United States, Great Britain, anywhere. And the third one I'm going to add for the guys, don't go to jail. Because that's almost impossible. I mean, and I say this, I've never been to jail, but I know people that have, and I know the problems that they have. And I'm not saying this to make people feel bad. I'm just saying that it's that equation, right? What you have in the future, you're deciding on today. So if you do not prepare now, then in the future, you'll have nothing to fall back on. This is the maxim you're going to find when you hit 60. You know that it's like under 30% of all families in America have a savings plan. And this is the piece of advice I would give my younger self. And that is, dude, you're going to be 50 someday. Back in the 70s when I was young, I got my first, taste of a career and money and stuff. Something else was invented at the same time. A video arcade. I dropped $200 to $300 a month into video arcades for 3 years. I know this. I didn't keep records, but I realized it after I had done it. But a friend of mine, my roommate, we were talking one day. I'm having the great life, man. I'm 21 years old. I got cash in my pocket. I can go down and do all these things. I can play video games, and I can go wherever I want. Me and my friends, we thought nothing of dropping $50 on a taxi to go where an arcade was. And we did that many times. Yeah, I was crazy when I was young. But my roommate, he never went anywhere. He never did anything. He just stayed there, watched TV. And one day I saw his pay stub, one of his pay stubs, and it said $89. I'm like, okay, I'm making like $600 a month. He's making $89, and we're the same level, right? I said, dude, who'd you kill? They took all your money. He goes, oh no, you don't understand. I planned this. I have a paid-for, tricked-out van waiting for me. I have $10,000 in the bank. And when I get out and go to college, I do not have to work for an entire year. He was like, I got hit in the head with a 2x4. Because I had just spent 2 years spending $200 to $300 a month, plus taxi fares, playing video games. I had nothing to show. You have to prepare now. Let me give you some secrets that nobody will tell you. You want to be a millionaire? Start when you're 20. Put $200 a month into a savings account or an IRA. When you turn 50, 55, thereabout, you'll have between $500,000 and $1 million, depending on how you invested it. That's true. And I'm embarrassed to say, who first gave me that advice? My mom. You're going to be old someday. That's one of the things. But according to the book of Proverbs, Proverbs says that wisdom will tell you if you don't prep. And there's more than one way to prepare for your future. It's not just all this negative stuff. There's positive things too. The book of Proverbs says that one day you're going to wake up and what you want will not be there. Whether it's wisdom, whether it's assets, whether it's whatever. Because if you don't figure it out now, you won't have it later down the line. Now, I have to put in a disclaimer. God does not want to stop you from having fun. I'm not saying all this stuff is like, oh man, we got to stop doing everything, stop having fun so I can be 60 someday. That stinks. Now, look, he's not saying that. He's just saying be wise. Learn from these other people who made mistakes and do something different. What do you want to do with your life? And that's the thing that I saw from my younger self. When I was younger, I didn't know what I wanted. I kind of did, but I didn't know. I didn't have a plan. I didn't think about it. So I just let whatever happened happen. I had a great time. I can't complain. But the thing is, though, I didn't prepare for the future. And that's what we want to do. God doesn't want you to not have fun. He wants you to have a future. He wants you to have a good future. He doesn't want you to have that's the whole thing he keeps showing people throughout the Bible. He doesn't want you to be miserable later in life. Why? Because what's true in the physical world is also true in the spiritual world. We talk a lot of times, we want to have a good spiritual life. We want to have a great relationship with God. And people talk about that all the time. You hear all these TV preachers talking about that. But they never tell you how to do it. They just tell you, you need this. Okay, how do I get there? God tells us, this is how you get there. Very simple. Basically 4 things. One is prayer. Get a daily habit of prayer. The second one is reading the Bible. It's a daily habit of learning God's Word. We want to learn more about Him. He wrote it down. He wrote a biography. You can read it. Third thing is what we're doing right now. Fellowshipping with others, hanging out with other believers. And there's more to it than just going to church. Hanging out with other believers, you learn things from each other, just like we're talking about. I learned things from other believers who had already gone through experiences and already had some wisdom, so we can learn from each other. And the fourth thing is share what you know with other people. Witnessing, sharing with each other, sharing one another's burdens. That's what helps us to have a spiritual future. So what are you doing today to prepare for your spiritual future? Okay, we talked about those 4 things to do when you're already a believer, but there's actually one before that. The real first thing you need to do if you want to prepare for your spiritual future is to become a child of God. That's the first thing. As I talked about earlier, we're not good within ourselves. We're not able to live up to God's standard. And God says there's a penalty for that. Not living up to God's standards, we call sin. And there's a penalty if you live in sin. But thankfully, God Himself provided a way to pay the penalty for us. We can't pay that. That's why Jesus came. He paid the penalty for us, so we have access to God. We can be right with God. And we can have this spiritual side to us because of what Jesus did on the cross. And maybe you are a child of God, and you're thinking, man, what am I going to do? I got to think about my future. The great thing about God, and this, I love this part because you never see this anywhere else. We serve a God who gives us second chances, and third and fourth and fifth. He doesn't, just because we don't think we're cutting it, doesn't mean that he thinks we're not. He will give us the chance to turn our lives around, and he will help us. But you got to ask. So if you know you're a child of God, you need to rededicate yourself. Today's the day. And there's no better day to start again than right now. If we need new starts, all we have to do is ask him. And as we sing our closing hymn, if you need to do any of those things, you need to know, you need to start your relationship with God, or you want to start a new relationship with God. The altars are open, and I invite you to come.